Ok, pessoal, então a gente vai começar aqui a nossa live ABC com o Dan Mindel. O Dan faz parte de 3 associações, ele assina a ASC, BSC e SAC, que é da África do Sul. E essa live ABC ela foi realizada como um espaço informal para a troca de conhecimentos sobre cinematografia. E assim, com todos os eventos e publicações, reiteramos que não são tolerados comentários e posturas machistas, racistas, homofóbicas ou de qualquer outra natureza preconceituosa. Então, eu quero agradecer demais a Dani, o Adolfo, a Tid, o Carlão, a ABC. Quero lembrar a todos que essa entrevista será em inglês, em respeito ao Dan, mas ela será traduzida depois no nosso YouTube. Segue o canal da ABC lá, tá bom? Muito obrigado. So, Dan, live from Hawaii.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Oh, it's been crazy times, right?
Yeah, and for you today, has the government resigned yet?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just chilling here with you. I think it's much better to... Yeah, complicated times, but that doesn't stop us from sharing knowledge and getting together. And I know I think it'll be just fine, right?
Eventually, yes.
Eventually, I think after all this craziness, we'll be better after this COVID. And hopefully, I don't know. I'm just hoping that we be better.
Let's talk afterwards and then we can decide.
Okay, then. So, I was thinking about this. Is it true that at the first you wanted to be a doctor and then you stepped into photography happened in your life? Tell us about it.
Well, do you remember when you were a kid and your parents expected you to follow the family tradition?
Oh yeah, sure remember that.
So my father was a surgeon, and I spent most of my later school life doing science and biology because I didn't understand that I had the choice. And when I started doing science in college, I realized there's no way. I'm not going to spend 7 years doing biology and chemistry. No. So, yeah, I fell into movies because I wanted to work with photography, and I didn't realize how what movies were or anything like that. I just knew that still photography was what I knew, and maybe Super 8 from my father. But once I started working in the commercial industry in England, I became in contact with filmmakers, and I realized that there was so much that I wanted to know. And I saw these guys, really famous cinematographers and directors working, and I thought, I need to do that. And so now, maybe 40 something years later, I'm still doing that.
You kind of fell in love for the camera crew when you saw a camera crew. You say, that's what I want to do, something like that, or not?
Well, the company I worked at had an editorial department, and so I was able to see the things we were shooting in post. And in those days, nothing was digital; everything was film, and I had the opportunity to see what the cinematographers were doing and be on the floor of the studio, and then see the impact in dailies the next day. I used to go and see the editors before anybody was in the building and just hang out and see what they were doing. And I just became absolutely fascinated with that.
So that worked as your film school? kind of.
Yeah, well, yeah, I work in a lot of film schools, and I work with a lot of students around the world. And the thing I realize is that you do have to know everything if you want to be a cinematographer or a director or a prop man. One day, somebody is going to ask you to do something on the set that is not your job. And so you should know how to do that. As the head of many departments, I find it very useful when people say, no, I can't do that. I can say to them, well, I can show you how to do that. I can show you how to make beer for a beer commercial or whatever you want.
Okay. And you started shooting some shorts, and then your debut on the film industry with feature films was with the great Tony Scott on the Enemy of the State, right? The first feature film.
I worked with him as
on commercials, right? Many commercials these guys shot together.
Yeah, I became a focus puller for him and Ridley, and I worked at their company a lot in England, and I pulled focus on an American movie in Mexico for Tony after they fired one of the guys. They brought me from England, and when I saw how the American movies were being made, I thought, oh, I want to do this. And so
was this The Hunger or not? It was not The Hunger.
No. It was after The Hunger. It was a movie called Revenge.
Revenge. Oh, yeah, starring Kevin Costner and Madeline Stone.
Yeah. And so I realized that I want to work in America after that, and I got a job in California on Thelma and Louise as focus with Ridley, and while I was doing that, I was shooting commercials. So I was a focus puller in the daytime, and in the nighttime I was shooting commercials. And
SDP?
Yeah.
Ah, cool.
And I got I shot a bit of additional photography on some Tony movies. At the end, after they wrapped and they were just cleaning up the movies, he would call me and I would go and shoot the inserts, and slowly he offered me a movie, and I said no.
You said no?
Yeah, I said I'm too nervous. I'm not ready to do that.
Wow.
And he said okay, and a few weeks later, I got a postcard, an analog postcard, that he wrote to me that said, I owe you the next movie.
So I imagine you kept this card really close to you.
Yeah. And then he gave me Enemy of the State, which was an insanely huge movie for somebody to shoot that had no idea.
No, I imagine as a first film, it's like full of many different locations, a big star in the main character. I imagine working on like John Voight, like Will Smith, and on the very first picture, I imagine your anxiety.
Well, when I don't know if the word translates to Portuguese, but he was my mentor.
Yeah, it's a similar word in Portuguese. Yeah.
So I had no fear because he was, I had no fear that they were going to fire me I had fear that I would mess it up technically. But from being a focus puller and then going into that position, I realized that the guys in the lab, everybody was supporting me, and all I had to do was ask. And
oh, that's perfect.
And I think that that's the same for everybody. It's better to ask than not to ask. And
always when you head it out, ask.
Yeah.
Don't be ashamed. Yeah.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
For sure.
And so at the end of it, I survived. And
you know what a wonderful thing that you're telling me this whole story is, because I saw all your films too, right? To talk with you, of course. And I can see if you started with the lab and then you were a focus puller and then starting your career with Tony Scott, there are three fundamentals about this: your love for film and your knowledge of film and the different stocks, and your knowledge about the lenses and the craftsman of the lenses and the design of the lenses, and your love for anamorphics. And the third thing, to start a career with a director so stylized, so free, and so not afraid to try new things like Tony Scott. I can see how that inflected your work even nowadays. You know, I think it's like
oh yeah,
a wonderful way to start. You know, it's perfect.
Well, it's absolutely. I as a focus puller, when cinematographers said to me, "Okay, I want to use these lenses or this," at the time, I took a mental note of what was happening, and my experience movies and being able to do the testing of the lenses and trying things out, and now I know what I like. I know what I like to look at, but what I like to do is I like to give the camera assistants the opportunity to engineer the lenses the way that they want to engineer them, because then I can see what someone else is doing, and maybe the audience can't see the way that we've changed the lenses or something like that, but I can definitely see. And so it's very interesting to me to let them do that, but I'm still using the same lenses now that
Really nice.
we were using when we were kids.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And during your career as focus puller, your brief career, you shot a film here in Brazil, right?
Yeah.
The Emerald Florist.
Yeah.
And you told me a funny story about this film, that when you were here in Brazil, you purchased a certain camera, or not?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Somehow I became known in Europe as the guy that works in Brazil. So I got a lot of work over and over in Brazil, and I came there to do, I think, a commercial. I can't remember. Maybe that movie with Mick Jagger, Running Out of Luck, that Julian Temple shot, directed. But one of the camera assistants had an accident in his girlfriend's car.
Oh my God.
And he had to repair the car. So he had an Araflex that he had sent to Germany to get renovated. It was a 2C.
A lovely camera.
Yeah, and so he needed some money very badly to repair
the car.
So I said to him, okay, I'll buy the camera. And he said, okay. So I bought the camera and I took it back to Hollywood, and I had Panavision cut the side off of it and make it into a hand crank camera.
Yeah.
And
that is the very same camera that we see on all the sets with Tony Scott, right?
Yeah. Well, then we made a lot. But Tony wanted to shoot a TV commercial that was period. It was set in the time of the Wright brothers, the guys that had the first flight.
Yeah.
I think there's a Brazilian that also
claims. Yeah. There is a Brazilian in the middle of this called Santos Dumont too.
Right. But at the time, they were able to shoot with a hand crank that flight.
Cool.
So United Airlines wanted Tony to direct a commercial about the history of United. So he said to me, I want to shoot with a hand crank camera, exactly the way that they did. So I found all these cameras, and the real ones were made out of wood and very fragile. And I knew that we would destroy them if we took them. So I got first the Arri, which it's got the little spinning wheel on the side of it.
Yeah.
And so we would just hold on to it with a glove to stop it, and that's how we first started with the hand crank. But then we realized that on the back of the camera is a tachometer. So when we cut the side off and we started doing this, we knew where 24 frames. And so we could go 18, 20, 18, 24, just like this. And that's the thing that commercials is so fantastic for, is you can experiment.
And
that's what Tony, he used to do that. He used to experiment on his commercials, and then we would go and do a movie, and we would take everything that we learned and use it. And that's how we got to Enemy of the State. And the photography there came from the commercials that we were doing beforehand.
Really, really cool. I think the commercials are fundamental, because during the commercials we can test all the toys that will work for us to tell this kind of story.
Absolutely.
So after 2 films, The Enemy of the State and Spy Game, you guys set to do Domino.
Yeah.
And I think the Domino has a very, very unique look that I want to hear a little bit from you. And it has the 2C, right?
Yes.
That's shooting something like 6 frames a second. Sometimes the guys are under crank like.
Well, yeah, we experimented in commercials with trying to get the camera to smear when we transferred the dailies. So what we would do is we shoot at 6 and transfer it at 24 and try to get these camera smears. And Tony was very interested in not having static frames, and he was very interested in what was going on in the background and in the midground and all. For him, if the frame was static and there wasn't something going on, it wasn't interesting to him. So we experimented with circular track, and we experimented with 2 dollies on circular track, with a track spread between the 2 dollies so that the track could spin and then the camera could go in and out. So the room would spin. When you're looking at somebody, the background would spin.
Even though the characters are still, the background moves.
Yeah. And he was very interested in that. And you saw in Spy Game, we did that with a helicopter.
Yeah, the Vietnam scenes, right?
Yeah, no. These two guys shooting, they're doing dialogue on a roof.
Oh, yeah.
And crazy. But he was very interested in doing that. And so by the time we got to Domino, with the hand crank and the reversal, cross process and all that kind of stuff, it just turned into something that every day he would say to me, maybe we've gone a bit crazy. Maybe it's too much. But he wouldn't stop. And I learned more about color on that movie than I did in my whole life, because we were experimenting with the cross process, and we were very interested in how to retain as much skin as possible, but let everything else
go crazy, right?
Yeah. And when you cross process reversal film, the color space just goes insane. Yeah. And you see a lot of people try to mimic the look in post in a non-photochemical way. And it's interesting because you can get it close, but you definitely can't get the texture. But if you have to decide between the anxiety of processing photochemically and working in a telecine, maybe it's better to work in a telecine.
And this is a biographical film, right? And the story kind of happened, kind of won't.
Yeah.
And I can imagine you guys, such a unique approach. It's really different, the angles are, I think Domino and Spy Game and Enemy of the State, I think Tony really likes like the Dutch angles, and he always covers the scene. It's not a traditional way. I think this is such a wonderful way to storytelling. It's like
the professional guys like Roger Deakins will prefer to shoot one camera. Scorsese will shoot one. Most people shoot just one camera. But for Tony, he would like to shoot the inserts at the same time. So if you're smoking or you're drinking or you're doing something, he's going to put a tighter lens on that, and then he'll put another tighter lens on top, and eventually you end up with six cameras in a room photographing a guy at a table. And I think that what that allowed him to do was, especially on the longer lenses, Dutch the camera. So maybe it came as a result of just trying to fit the camera into the space. It would end up maybe being like this or like that. And we became very comfortable working that way. And I think that it's still a good way to work. I think that, storytelling in movies is very visual. Obviously, the intellectual part of the movie can be transmitted visually. It doesn't always have to be words. But when you can get both together, obviously you have something that's very special. But I think that Tony was able to push the visual part of cinema to a place where it changed the way that modern filmmakers work. And
he pushed it to another level, I think.
Yeah. And the reverberations are still coming in contemporary cinema.
And then tell me, you work with a reversal film in this film, and you cross-process the reversal film, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You did a lot of testing. How was it? How was the prep for Domino?
Very short.
Very short?
Yeah, but we had been experimenting in commercials.
Oh, I see.
And I did a Jerry Bruckheimer episodic sometime in this moment, and I think I shot the beginning of a series, the first movie, and we were shooting 16mm reversal, and somebody made a mistake at the lab and processed the film in the wrong bath, which was a cross process. So when we saw it, we went, oh, okay, this is very interesting, and we can do this. And that's where the seed came from, I think. Was an accident, and that was the philosophy that he had about everything, that the magic happens when you experiment and you have an accident, you get magic.
Yeah.
And he tried to teach me, and I try to teach everyone that I ever meet, that you have to experiment. And I realized that after doing the ASC masterclass in Sao Paulo, I realized after working in the room with 10-year veterans of the film industry that some people don't get to experiment because they can't afford the risk. And that's what I was trying to teach in the class, was that do a take for yourself where you experiment, and do a take for the director. Yeah. Cover yourself, but try something so that you can teach yourself where to go next. So if you have an idea, try it out.
The Adriano Goldman, who is BSC too and ASC, and he shot The Crown, he said something really interesting in another live that we had here. And he always says to the director, the A camera is your camera to direct. And don't worry about the B or C camera. I'll give you the coverage. And I'll give you something really different that will make the difference then on the editing. So I think this is really, really interesting. Something. Yeah. Try new things.
Yeah, I mean, the philosophy of sort of producing generic film is something that is disappearing very quickly. That cinematographers now, because they have a DIT on set and the director and the producers are watching everything, they have a contribution to make too, and the visual sort of the lock on the visuals that the DP used to have doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I think that in order to make the episodics that we make for Netflix or whatever it is, you can see that it's turning into such a creative space, because the DPs are able to add through the second, third, fourth, fifth camera something. And I really enjoy this. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. I think something that Tony taught you and that you try to teach us, it's like what I call the happy accidents. That every film set that I go, it's like the actor does one thing and then drops an object, get out of the frame and get back into the frame, and it's the magic appears, and you say, Oh, I love that. It's like
Yeah.
it's a little
Well,
traditional. You have to always embrace this kind of thing. And
how many times have you heard the director, when he sees the Steadicam going back to the beginning and the grip is carrying the Steadicam and the thing's doing this, and the director says, what's that? How did you do that?
How did you do that? This is such yeah, it's really nice. Really nice, Dan. And so always embrace what's called the errors, right?
Yes.
It's like, don't be afraid to mess it up. It's like,
no, I think that, you know, there is a place where you have to be careful, and creatively, I've heard many times in the DI suite, the colorists, I've heard them saying, oh, I was working on this movie and it's so dark, and the studio think it's too dark, and the director thinks it's too dark, and we have to work very hard to make it acceptable. And I think that that's where you have to be careful as the cinematographer, is don't take your personal taste and try to force it on the director or on the story. That you have to give a little bit of insurance to everybody to make sure that you can negotiate a little later. You can always make it darker, but you can't always bring it back. And I think that there's a big sort of need for young cinematographers to prove themselves to the director and the actors and the producer by doing something exceptional. But something exceptional doesn't have to be catastrophic. It can be something that you can live with technically, and later aesthetically you clean it up and make it look fantastic. And this idea is so much simpler now to maintain than it was before.
I think it's a distinction that you're saying about there is movie business and there's movie art.
Exactly.
And how do you connect those two things? You know, how it's like.
Exactly. It's on a commercial movie, it's movie business, and as long as you're conforming to your part of the agreement, then you can bring some movie art on on the second take or the third take.
That's really cool. Really cool. So then, after you've done these 3 wonderful films with Tony Scott, you bring the attention to J.J. Abrams. And J.J. was like debuting his career on the film industry. He was he shot TV series, and then he asked you to shoot Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah.
How was it? Tell us a little bit about this project.
For me, it was really maybe the second or the third time that I was working outside of the Ridley Scott company.
Yeah.
And it was very liberating to be in a workspace where the pressure wasn't so intense. Because JJ, his philosophy is not the way that the Scott brothers were. It was a very intense place to work. And so the first thing I noticed when I met him was, apart from how really, really brilliant he is as a communicator, as an intellect, as a film director, as a storyteller, as a human being, apart from all of that, he was totally relaxed, and that made me feel, oh, there's another way to do this. And so we started Mission Impossible, and I learned so much making that movie, because there were visual effects that were pretty huge, and it was the first time that I worked with ILM and Roger Guyette, who is the visual effects supervisor that worked on that movie, and that changed my my life, really, to come into contact with those people and see how visual effects work. The movie was massive, absolutely massive, as Mission Impossibles are. It is a Tom Cruise movie, and he's has a very, very big say in how the movie gets made. And as a movie maker, he is, and an actor, and a stuntman. He's one of only a few people that I've ever met in my entire life in this movie industry that can do what he does. It's pretty amazing to see.
And he can run, definitely. Right.
Amongst other things, yes.
Amongst other things, right?
Yeah.
And when you did this project, he was associated with Paula Wagner, right?
Yeah.
And did you guys have a pre-production meeting, the four of you, like you, JJ, Paula, and Tom, when about how the production was going on? What?
Yeah. In the beginning, there was, for me, this was a very political place to start, because I wanted to, this was a big studio movie that demanded certain criteria, and one of them was that they didn't want to use the laboratory that I had been using for 20 years.
Wow.
And for me, that was a huge problem. And that was the first thing that I had to negotiate. And while we were shooting hair, makeup, wardrobe tests, I was dealing with the politics of how to get what I wanted, and I learned a lot about my job as a politician.
We are always negotiating, right? We are always negotiating.
Yes, and I think that one of the biggest tools you can have is the ability to negotiate these situations. It's very important. We had a very big production meeting early in the movie where there was this sequence where Tom and the actors were in a helicopter, and they were flying through all the windmills.
The windmill, yeah.
And this is in the first meeting where I first met Tom Cruise and everybody, and there's 40 people at the table.
Yeah.
And he asked me, how are you going to shoot this sequence? And I hadn't really been thinking about that at that moment. And I said to him, well, I know how Tony would have shot it. He would have shot it for real, with no visual effects. And that is the difference between working with a director that is a visualist and somebody that is practical in the sense, oh, we'll do visual effects. So I said, I think I'd probably shoot the establishing shots day for night, because the size of the area that they wanted to light at night was huge.
It's huge. You can see in the film, it's like a big windmill. It's like...
Yeah, and Tom said to me, no, we're going to shoot it at night, for real.
Night for night, for real.
I said, okay, fine. We can do that. We can absolutely do that. And that's the fantastic thing about working in Hollywood on big Hollywood movies, is that when people say stuff like that, you know that there are the people and the technology to do it. You just have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And so for me to say to him, yeah, okay, we can do that. It's not a lie.
And how was the talk to shoot on anamorphic this project? Tom was really don't like it, don't like it.
No, there was no issue.
No issue.
No, JJ said to me in the very beginning, I really like the look of Enemy of the State, and I like that. How did you do that? And I said, well, one of the first things you have to do is you have to shoot anamorphically to get that look. And he said, oh, okay, I've never done that before. Let's do that. And so I was able to get the same lenses that I used on that movie.
Cool.
And then I started shooting tests and showing him, this is, the 25, this is the 40, and this is what it does, and blah, blah, blah. And that's that. And everything we've shot since then, JJ and I, has been anamorphic. And I love that. It's fantastic.
The primos? You use the primos on this project? Oh, yeah. I asked you about Tom because sometimes I only did like 2 projects on anamorphic. Unfortunately, I don't have your experience. One day I'll get there, maybe. But the whole softness about it, which is like wonderful. I love it. The whole look. Sometimes it's really hard for the focus puller, because the actor like does this and then focus puller is like it's an extra challenge for the crew to work on anamorphics, and I think it's totally worth it. It's like the look. It's
there is something that you can remember, that modern cinematographers, because they shoot digitally, they need the softness of the lenses to compensate for the hardness of the medium. So instinctually, everybody wants to shoot wide open, which makes it impossible for the focus puller. The focus pullers now are like this, watching the TV, because that's the only way it works. But the reality is that primos, or most anamorphics, work better with some aperture. If you shoot wide open, you're going to have trouble, and you'll have trouble that sometimes is good trouble and sometimes it's bad trouble. But because it's movie business and not movie art, if you go on a set where they've spent $5 million building the set, and you're shooting 1:1, and you can't see the walls and you can't see the set, what is the point of doing that? And a cinematographer can get into huge trouble by making that kind of decision. So the nice thing about anamorphics is that if you shoot with a 4 or a 2/8 and 2/3 or something like that, the focus comes in and you still have the drop off, the separation.
The bouquet.
Yeah. But you're showing some of the set, and I think that's a very deep.
Oh, then you're failing.
Sorry.
You're failing the audio.
Yeah, I had a phone call. It's gone.
Okay. Okay. Good. And this film, one wonderful thing about this film that I just seen it, it's like you have like 4 main like action scenes. You have this scene on the wine mill that you just mentioned, and you have one explosion on a bridge, and the guys are like hijacking. You have the Italy stuff, Vatican. And you have the one sequence that I would love to talk a little about. It's the Shanghai sequence. Tom jumps the building and then picks up the rabbit's foot and then skydive into the street. It's like it's a mixture of different like things, and it's like you guys shot on Shanghai and then on LA and soundstage, and there's lots of different things going on there, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little about it.
Well, we read the sequence. The writers went to Shanghai and wrote the sequence. And when we got the sequence, we had to tell the studio how we were going to do it, what the plan was. And so we went to scout in Shanghai and took a look around, and we realized that, first of all, it was at night, and it was on the top of really tall buildings, and required helicopters and all sorts of stuff that were forbidden in Shanghai at that time. So they kind of put it all in the future, and we started shooting the movie without really planning that until sometime after the movie had started shooting, and Paramount asked us to tell them how much it was going to cost. And when we worked out the price, that dictated how much would go to China, how much would stay in America, and blah, blah, blah. And so, you know, to make it practical, we built a replica of the top of the building on the top of a car park.
Wow.
In LA, so that you could use the night lights outside and see the city. And we built the building, the roof of the building that he lands on in the studio. And we went to Shanghai and shot all the other bits and pieces, except for the interior of the buildings where the guy gets sucked out the window and that kind of stuff. And this is what I was saying earlier. This is where the visual effects guys taught me so much. The beginning of the sequence, which is a 360-degree track around Tom, and then he runs and jumps off the building, was all done with a wire cam.
Wow. A spider cam, right?
Yeah, on the top of the building in LA. And that's how that all starts. The wire cam, we also used it in China, where he's running down the side of the thing, the water. There's that, he jumps out the window, runs down. JJ is brilliant at designing these single take long shots, and that was one of his I think very best moments. The action is really great. I mean, I think it works very well.
It's wonderful. And if the camera is like panning 360 degrees, you in your gaff, what is the solution of lighting? You have a lighting above the camera, or something?
It depends.
Something raised on both, or?
Well, in those days, LEDs were not used as much, but we designed the lighting on the roof knowing that we were going to do that. So there was enough ambient coming off the roof, and we were able to put lights out in the distance that got painted out because we replaced some of the sky.
I see.
But for the close-ups, I think we just handheld the lights, and then as the camera moves, take them out.
Oh, that's good. That's really, really good. And on this first project with JJ, who the big story behind the flares, and who first introduced the flares? JJ asked you the flares, or you guys were shooting something, and the lens flared, and then you guys, whoa, that looks cool. That's right.
It's a long story, but when I was very young, I worked on a commercial in London after Blade Runner was shot, and after Alien, and it was a Blade Runner set for a bank commercial that Ridley was directing, and do you remember in Alien where the guys land on the planet and they go outside and they've got the flashlights and they're walking around?
When they discover the eggs later.
Yeah,
I remember.
So that flashlight that they used really fascinated me. And when we were shooting this commercial, we had them on the set because they were using them for something. I can't remember what. But when I saw them, I fell in love with this thing. And so
it's a big flashlight, right?
It's got a big battery. It's a xenon.
It's a xenon, right? Yeah.
But it has a parabolic mirror, and you can focus it.
Oh wow!
It has electronic focus, so you hold the button in, and the beam goes.
Oh, right. Cool.
And when we were shooting Mission Impossible, we had I like to use xenon lights, and we were shooting with xenons all the time, and you get these flares with the xenons, and in dailies we would see the flares, and he would go, "Oh, that's fantastic." How? So that's how it started, basically. But when we came to Star Trek, in between Mission Impossible and Star Trek, I started messing around with the idea that you could allow the light to hit the lenses on the set, as opposed to flagging all the time.
Embracing the mistake.
Yeah. As a focus puller, I was taught always clean the lens, get it
flagged, get it flagged.
Yeah. So I realized that shooting on set especially when you are building a window or something, and you want to make it feel like it's outside. When I'm sitting here in this room, my eyes are flaring with the sky and all that kind of stuff, and I just started allowing that to happen because it made the set feel more natural.
Perfect.
And then we had the flashlights, and JJ started saying, well, what happens if we do this? And we point the thing at the light, and then we realized, we can do it all the time.
Perfect. Sorry, Dan, I have to really cut fast, and then I'll recall it because it's 1 hour long, and then
Okay.
See you in a minute if you want to go to the bathroom or something.
Okay. All right.
1 minute, and I'll call you again.
Okay.
So we were talking about this.
There you are.
MI3 and the flares working with JJ, and I think one thing that happened in our careers is like every project sometimes leads to another project. It's like we're like getting up these stairs, and then you guys start an approach with all things with the flares, and then you came Star Trek, and you guys took the flares to another level. I think it was like the flares went crazy on Star Trek.
Yeah. We went crazy.
How was that? Was like JJ asked you, like, let's take, or it was like you decided to?
No. He was very interested in pushing, and together maybe we pushed a little too much, but I think the same thing happened with that as with Domino. People started imitating the whole thing, and it's fine. I'm fine. I think that I'm happy that people are still doing it. I still see people flaring shit on commercials and in the cinema and whatever.
Yeah, perfect. One thing that I think it's really, really cool on Star Trek, that JJ asked you to shoot as much as on location as you guys could, like to keep the green screen work to minimal, because
I mean that's the key to making the green screen acceptable, is if you minimize the amount that you have to do. But sometimes, especially with very contemporary movies, sequences will be written that are impossible. And Marvel, the superhero movies, have taken that and turned it into industry.
Cool. Yeah.
It's I think it's very tiring to watch an entire movie that's shot in green screen.
It's different for us as an audience to connect with the film.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's you can totally see if the scene it's like 100% green screen, you totally you can see that.
Yeah. And living on a set that's green for weeks, it's very sad.
And JJ, it was fine with the shooting on anamorphics for Star Trek? Or
I don't think that there's another option.
It's your passion.
Well, yeah, I mean, it works. Just because I don't know. For me, it's just totally natural.
How was this passion developed? Like, because you shot 18 features, 16 them on film, and 15 of them are anamorphic lenses. And this passion came from where?
Maybe the idea that the early movies that I watched as a kid were more or less widescreen for cinema and spherical for TV. And working with, when I first saw Fitzcarraldo, before I went to do Emerald Florist, I watched every movie that was shot in Amazon. When I saw Fitzcarraldo, I realized how the anamorphics accentuated the environment, the vista, how the human eye sees 120 degrees. And I used to love the Sergio Leone two perf movies that were like that. Yep. And for me, cinema is widescreen, and I'm really not interested in not working in that format. For me, it's part of the storytelling, or it's part of the power of cinema is the anamorphics, and part of the storytelling process. There's tremendous power in exposing people to movies on a big screen, and the idea of manipulating the audience through the way you frame it, the sequence, or where you put the focus, or how you operate, whatever, is something that is very doable for me, anamorphically.
And do you have a preferred one, like E series, C series, or you have a special one built for you nowadays, right? Or
well, yeah, I mean, I think that I've realized that the primos are unbeatable. That they are high tech enough to deal with the backlight, and they're low tech enough to have idiosyncratic issues, and that's just perfect for me. I find the modern series of lenses, the DNAs and all those lenses, are so perfect.
They're almost too perfect sometimes. Right?
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing happening. You have to work very hard to make the texture come back. And I think that it's not necessary to be that clinical unless you're telling Solaris or some sort of Stanley Kubrick movie.
I see. So you guys, like, were you like a big fan of the Star Trek series or not?
Yeah, I mean, I still do. I like science fiction. I used to read a lot of science fiction when I was young, when I was a kid, and Star Trek was always on TV when I was little. But 2001 changed my perspective of what those things should look like.
Oh, yeah.
And so when it came to engaging in Star Trek, we could never be presumptuous and say we were going to make 2001, but what we could do is we could elevate what had been done before us and make it stylistically richer than it was before.
But I think you guys were really happy in like paying an homage to the old series and like bringing something new, something fresh for the new franchise to like. I think you guys did a wonderful job.
Thank you. I think you know, it started with JJ telling us that he wanted to preserve the positivity and the sort of nature of the original series, but not to worry about how the visuals were going to change, as long as the characters were positive and engaging. And I think they were. I think I think they were great. I'm proud of both those movies. I like them.
They are really unique, really good films. And after Star Trek, and you did like John Carter, and like you were like the expert on post-production films, heavy post. And then you took a break from this kind of films, and you shot Savages along with Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
And Savages, it's something really nice. I think it's like has aesthetics really. There's something about the look that it progresses as long with the story, you know. It's like the color. It's something like really different. And I can see like experimenting on this film, different things, you know.
Yeah, Oliver didn't like it the way it ended. He didn't like
the post, right?
Yeah, I mean, he told me I had destroyed his movie, and that I had turned it into a Tony Scott film and blah blah blah. And you know, I don't think that was the case. I thought that the script was really great, and that he was going to be a lot more edgy. I thought it was going to be a lot dirtier than it ended up. And I was amazed, because when I read it, I thought, oh, what a great opportunity to tell a bilingual story, because Los Angeles is a bilingual city. And it has a heavy Latino component to the movie, obviously. And I thought, in my mind, I thought that that's how it was going to end up. I suggested that we use a lot more. I suggested Spanglish to Oliver, and that it would be cool to shoot it against a backdrop of LA and show it in a way it hadn't been seen for a long time. But he wanted to make the colors more saturated, more poppy. We kind of missed.
I see.
But yeah, it was an interesting job to work on. He's a genius. There's no one like him, I don't think, and I think his movies really are part of the DNA of Americana, really, American movies.
There's a great storytelling work on this film. There's a sequence where Blake Lively is doing a blindfold, and Salma Hayek, like she has to come before her, and then people take out the blindfold of her, and then once the blindfold is off, there's a flare on the lens. It's like that kind of stuff that really helps the audience to like feel the same thing that the character is feeling. I think that sort of thing is wonderful. It's like the kind of tools that we have that always help to tell the story.
Well, I think that that's part of being on the set next to the camera and being involved and not being in the tent.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as you're away from there, you miss that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Perhaps you're drinking a cup of tea and you're talking to the DIT and you're texting and all this stuff is happening. Mm-hmm. And you miss the opportunity. And I think that it's that for me, shooting film on a film like that means you have to pay 100% attention, or I do, because I'm an idiot, and I always have to check with my spot meter. I have to check the exposure all the time, and whatever's going on, I have to be cognizant of that, and that allows me to be part of the story. Mm-hmm. If I'm over there in the thing.
So even if you don't operate, you really stand next to the camera.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice. Not to be in the comfort zone there, like just watching the village. It's like, it's really nice.
It's a big mistake, I think, to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And later on the film, it's like one thing that I think it's wonderful, Salma Hayek, it's like a big like cartel lady. It's like she's the badass, and she doesn't connect so well with her daughter, but she connects with the person that she's kidnapping, which is Blake. And so far in the film, the camera work, we have really movements and the whole crazy thing about LA and the Spanglish that you said. And there's this scene that they're having dinner and talking about their lives, which is kind of surreal. It's a really classic scene. The movements are really smooth. And you can tell this is a drug lord lady. She's like over the top. The house is huge. But we never see in the frame the pool. But we have like the scene of them and the panel of the light of the water. It's on the walls.
Yeah.
There is something like that. So we feel that the house is bigger because of that panel. And we feel like, wow, this person is like important. This person is a badass. It's like
I think it was Frank Sinatra's house.
Oh, wow.
And it's a very linear design, and so it was perfect for anamorphics. The way it was framed it just fit in perfectly. But again, that particular sequence, there's a lot of color, and it's saturated. And Oliver said to me, it's like a Tony Scott movie. And what can I say, you know?
Oh my God. Okay. And after this project then, and after having shot in prior John Carter, there is this Star Wars happened to your life. And tell me, how was about that? Were you a big fan of the original films, and how was it like JJ called you and said we're doing a Star Wars film? I can imagine you're feeling like, wow, I'm part of this now.
Well, I think what happens with me is that when I get a script or something like that, or I'm talking to the producer or the director about something that could happen, it's one thing. And then it becomes another thing when you are on the airplane and you're heading to the location and you have no protection. You're just going there. So for me to go back to the UK and do that movie was a huge sort of closure in my life, because I went back to where I started from. And I was working in Pinewood, which is one of the greatest studios in the world. And the last time I worked in Pinewood, I was a kid. I was a focus puller. And I was going back as the head of department, the cinematographer. And for me, it was a moment where I thought, oh, okay, so what else can I do?
What else?
But the more I got involved with it, the more I realized that my hands were tied, that the movie was going to look the way it was going to look because the look was already evolved, and there was nothing we could do to change that. And JJ had said to me, I want to try to find the way to make this movie look like the first movies in the series. I don't want it to look like the later movies, and see if you can find some of the original lenses that it was shot on and all that kind of stuff. And I realized I found a couple of the lenses that they had used on the first Star Wars, or the first couple of Star Wars, and I realized that they were too low contrast, too soft, too everything, and
the lack of contrast, right?
Yeah, because contemporary cinematography is so much about contrast that it would be unacceptable to shoot a low contrast movie. And so I went back to Panavision and asked them about building the lenses with sort of texture that I wanted, but with contrast, so I could mimic the original lenses, but just keep the contemporary feel. And we did that, and then fortunately we had enough time in the studio to research the sets and the lighting and everything, and we did not allow anything to be shot until we had tested it and looked at it and blah blah blah. Anyway, it was a very nerve-wracking experience from start to finish.
I remember you telling me there is this distinction in which lenses are what in this film. It's like, I think the primos are the first order, right?
Yeah.
The retro Cs are the resist.
Yeah.
Retro Cs are the resistance. Yeah.
So they're softer, warmer, and more sympathetic. But it was a fantastic experience to go literally from R&D all the way through to color timing for IMAX and all that kind of stuff at such a high level.
It was the first project that you used IMAX cameras, right?
No, we shot IMAX on the first Star Trek. Oh, I see. And I don't think we used them on Mission Impossible. I think Star Trek we
Into Darkness, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But then on Star Wars, we realized that they are very, very difficult to use on location, away from technical assistance. We took them to Abu Dhabi and we shot out in the desert, and it's fantastic and it worked really well, but we decided on 9 not to use IMAX, that the way we wanted to shoot was a lot quicker, a lot simpler, and just keep it anamorphic. And I like the second one a lot. I think it's nice. I like the photography. I think it's good.
Of Rise of Skywalker, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. The cinematography, it's gorgeous. It's really, I'm a big fan of Star Wars, as you can see. And one thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the emotional level of the scenes, especially on Rise, because that scene of C-3PO saying, "I'm just giving a last look on my friends." It's like, it's like that kind of scene that you like hoping or waiting your whole life to shoot it, It's like, I wanted to hear a little bit from you, from how it was to be on that set. It's like,
well,
and the whole...
There was a lot of emotion in the whole time, because it was the last one. And everybody knew that. It's a big crew, it's hundreds of people, and we have worked together before, and so everybody is very friendly, and there was no pressure, very, very, very little pressure on the set, other than technical stuff. So every day there was something happened, and everyone was like, "Oh God, that's fantastic," Yeah. But that scene, I like it very much. The lenses we used in the 75mm retro is just outstanding.
Were you 2/8 and 2/3, something like that?
Yeah.
Or not?
Yeah.
One thing that I find it's lovely on anamorphics that you always use on your projects, it's like when it does this, you can bring texture from the top of the frame and the bottom of the frame too.
Yeah.
And this scene, I think it's a wonderful example of that, because we can see 3PO on focus, but out of focus we have all these different kinds of things going on. It's like,
yeah, I learned that. I learned that from Ridley Scott when we were shooting Thelma and Louise. We were in on a location, and they were dressing the location as we were setting up the cameras. And the art director was there, and Ridley was telling him to hang stuff from the ceiling, because it was easy to get it into frame. And ever since then, I've always tried to get things in the top of frame and the bottom of frame on the set. It's such good value.
What kind of film stocks you used on Rise? It was the 5:19 and
mostly 19, yeah.
Mostly 19, which is a wonderful film stock for post, right?
It's just fantastic film. It really is. Technically, I don't think that humans will ever make a better film.
I see. And for the exterior work, you use the 50D or not?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the 50 because it has the color correction built in, and it tends to be too warm for me. I would much rather control the color temperature afterwards and not have it done for me. So in the desert, there's really no option but to use the that stock, because it's the only one. But I do wish that Kodak would take the color correction out of there.
And the workflow for this project, you guys woke up early and checked the dailies?
Yeah, we had projected dailies that were digital.
Mm-hmm.
So we process, there's a lab at Pinewood in the studio. And we process overnight, and they scan in the studio, and then we have the color correcting in the cinema. When we're watching dailies, we can color correct. And so, because I don't like the dailies to go to Avid or onto the internet unless we color them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I could do both at the same time in dailies. I could look at it and color and get on with my day.
So the colorist is always on production with you guys?
Yeah.
Working. It was Stefan on the Rise from Skywalker?
No, not for dailies. Stefan did the finish. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We had somebody else do our dailies.
And you guys have a kind of the LUT for the digital, and then you cool.
Yes, I mean, it's a fantastic way to work because you see the big screen, and that's so important with anamorphics.
And on Rise of Skywalker, then you're a guy who came like from the arc fault type lighting, and then all the way here HMIs, and nowadays we have the sky panels and we have the LD stuff. Mm-hmm. And I read somewhere that you chose to use the old 20Ks to do this project.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, I think the very most important thing is that the actors look good. And the problem with contemporary cinematography, as far as I'm concerned, is that a lot of guys aren't lighting anything. It's available light and a light bulb and a panel and a thing, which is fine. It's great. But if I've got a Hollywood movie star, I want to use Hollywood movie star lighting, and I want to make them look as good as I can. And I find I can control the key lights if they're analog lights with dimmers and color and diffusion a lot better than if I just put a sky panel and go through the desk and go down, 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 down. Yeah, go. It's, to me, that it's acceptable, but it's not the best. And on the very, very big sets, we would use digital lights in the ceilings and a long way away, but the basic plan was that whenever we had human beings in front of the camera, we use human being lighting. And
the Fresnels,
yeah, or blondes.
Blondes too, cool.
Yeah. I always key with the blondes.
Cool. And the backlighting, a lot of the harsh light. I really love the hair trainings stuff. That you guys shot that on Pinewood, even she running around and training with. That is a studio.
That's exterior in the woods.
Yeah.
It's in the studio, but outside.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they built the forest. The trees were there, but the art department fixed it up. It's fantastic.
Fantastic work. The production designer was Rick Carter, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. He won an Oscar for Lincoln and other things. The guy is really good.
He's incredible. Yes.
He's incredible. Yeah. And but the guys the guys embrace your idea, and it's okay. The gaffers and the electricians, they say, okay, we're working with Fresnels and we will correct them with CTVs and Fusion.
Yeah. Yeah. I asked them very early on before pre-production. I warned them that I was going to do that, because in Europe they're very technocratically advanced in the studios, and more or less they've thrown out all the old equipment, and I think it's a big mistake to do that. I mean, it works so well, and it's so aesthetically pleasing. I mean, the ARRI panels are fantastic. Don't get me wrong. We used thousands of them.
Yeah.
But there's lots of different ways of doing the same thing, and I like to change it. Cool.
So then tell us about, right after you shot like the biggest pictures of the planet, and do you miss the good old days of smaller projects, or how is it? How does it feel now?
Well, it's movie business.
You can't complain, right? But
I love working on giant movies. It's a lot of fun to work with resources that are unlimited, basically. Obviously, it's not like working on a small movie where you have a family of people and you're go. But I kind of ended up in this world, and it's what I do, and I really like it. And if I ever do another movie and it's a small movie, I'll be happy to do that as well.
Between the Star Wars, you shot only 2 features that were shot on digital. The one thing that I thought is curious, on Zoolander 2, you have your director working as the main character. How was that dynamics between you and Ben, and maybe the first AD? I don't know.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
It's a challenger, right?
Yeah. For an actor to look at their performance and direct the camera is impossible, I think. There's only a few people that can do it really well. Ben has done it a few times, and he's really good at understanding what is necessary. But it was a very difficult movie to make, and I don't think that anybody walked away happy with the film in general, because it was just so difficult. And I can't explain to you why it was difficult, but it was. And sometimes it's the small movies that you think are going to be really simple that end up being a nightmare. Yeah, and that was one of them. It could not have been in a better place. We were in Rome, and we had fantastic people, but every day was very, very difficult. And I think that it's a result of Ben having to be so careful about performance. And I think for an actor like that to go away at nighttime at the end of the day and lie in bed and think, was I good in the thing? And it's tricky.
It's crazy.
Tricky thing.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky. I can't imagine.
But I enjoy working with the Alexa on that. It's very simple, and one day I'll get another one.
That was my next question here on the list, because the two features you shot, you kept the anamorphic aesthetics, of course, for Pacific Rim Uprising as well, but it was the Arri Alexa, the main camera. Do you think on the digital field, there's the sensor texture is the closest thing to 35 mil?
I think Arri, I think that Arri have got the color space, the design of the mathematics of the color space is really great. So when you shoot with an Alexa, you know that your color is going to be good. And so if you get the right lenses and the right diffusion and the right everything, I think it's very possible to make it aesthetically pleasing. You know, if you want it to look like film, shoot film. But if you want to shoot digital, for me, the Alexa is fantastic.
Have you tested the new ones, the LFs?
Yeah. I mean, it's what it is, and it's an incredibly brilliant tool. I like the idea of being able to see what you're doing. But for me, there's no joy, no more joy than seeing dailies and sitting there going, oh wow, look at that, that's fantastic.
On these two films shot digitally, did you have a DIT on your team?
Yes. Yeah.
Because nowadays, I think ourselves as cinematographers on digital projects, we are always trying to talk through the productions to give us a DIT and the importance of having a DIT.
Yeah, I can see that happening. In America, it's still sort of normal in the Netflix, Amazon studio world. I think it's a false economy not to have the DIT. I think economically you save time later.
You save time later, you save money.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. And for Pacific Rim Uprising, how was the invitation? You guys have to follow the look for the previous film. You wanted to do something different. How was it?
The director had specifics that he wanted to use, but the production was limited in the sort of ability to build the sets the way they did on the original movie. Obviously, they didn't have the sort of mandate from the director, but it was a lot smaller movie, and it felt like it to me when you look at it. It felt small. But again, it was a opportunity for me to educate myself about the Alexa and the technology involved with that. And for me, it's important to understand how all of that works, because it's the way movies are made.
Yeah, that's it. And one thing that I wanted to talk to you about it was how we keep our creativity floating. Because for Pacific Rim Uprising, you managed to be set again with John Boyega, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that his skin looks good with a 40 mil, I don't know, 50 or 65. How we don't repeat ourselves, how we create something new and fresh.
Well, I think that's the problem that a lot of people have in the movie business. In the movie art department, it's something else. And I think in the last maybe 5 years, with Netflix and Amazon, what has happened is that the opportunity to watch movies that are made all over the world, not just in your own country, allows the cinematographer to see what other people are doing around the world. And for me, that's very important. And I like to watch movies shot in India, and I like to watch movies shot in Korea and in Brazil, and see what people are doing, because that's how you learn. And the fundamental rule, I think, on the set is to not be happy with what you arrive with at the beginning of a sequence, but to change it as you look at it, and as you see the sequence develop. Okay, I can do this, I can make this better. And you have to be brave and say to the director, I need half an hour, please. I can change this, I can make this better. And if he says no, he's an idiot. And you have to demonstrate that in order to buy the time to make it better. And that's, I think, the most important thing, is that if you are legitimately trying to make it better, everyone's going to give you the time.
Perfect.
And I will go to the director and say, look, this is good, but if you give me an hour, I can cut a hole in the thing, put the thing over here, move the and I can make this better. Are you interested? And if the director says, well, we don't really have time, cool, we don't have time. But if we have time, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Always trying new things, right? It's important.
You have to, yes.
You have to. And I think I did all my questions then. I have two final questions for you, okay. And then we wrap this up. The first question is the $1 million question.
Yeah.
It's like, what are your thoughts on what we are living, when the film industry will be from now? I personally feel that the crews will have to be somehow smaller. I don't know. I think we'll have to manage to shoot in a different way, a different set. I think we have to relearn from all this that is happening, somehow. I don't know, but
well,
I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
I think the thing that everybody's learned is that if you're going to stay at home, you need Netflix. And eventually, we're going to run out of things to look at. So we have to go back to work. So the issue of how this happens is something that the geniuses that run our countries are going to have to come to terms with, because it's not just the movie industry, it's everything. Absolutely everything, yes. And so I know, because I keep getting email from the union and the association of this and that, that people are actually working to figure this out. But until we have a way of testing who's positive, who's not, then I don't think any actor in the world is going to come on the set with a crew. And I don't think any crew is going to go on the set with any actors until everybody can prove that they are not infected. Yeah. So whatever that means is what it's going to be. In the idea that you can drink bleach and sit in the sun is
crazy.
You know, HMIs they emit a lot of ultraviolet light, so we could shoot with HMIs and have a lot of ultraviolet.
In Sunmax.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm very, very nervous.
Me too. And before we go to my final question, I'm just looking at some questions that the guys asked you here.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on working with first-time directors?
It's all good.
How you build a relationship? How it's like?
Well, I think the hardest thing is to be the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I want to work as the cinematographer, and if it's a first-time director, I want him to tell me what he wants to do, and then I can make a contribution. But I have no problem. I like working with first-time people.
Yeah, and another good question here. The people are asking, what are your initial discussions with the production designer to establish the look of the film? Once you read the script, and then you bring some notes to the director and the production designer.
Well, I always ask the director to show me what his images that he has in mind that aren't necessarily to do with the movie, but just in his life. Show me how you like to look at things. What are your favorite colors? Who's your favorite director? Whatever. Just a place to start. But then one of the very most important things for me is to have a good working relationship in the art department, technically and aesthetically. I need those guys to help me do the job, and vice versa. So the more we cooperate, the better it is.
Yeah, especially on films like Star Trek and Star Wars, because they have a lot of practical things going on, right?
Yes.
Have a lot of...
So I like to put a electrical department guy in the art department.
Oh, cool.
So that he can guarantee that we have the practical lighting where we need it. So we don't have to destroy the set when we get there.
And it works really faster, right? If you have the person there, just ask one thing and then
and save money.
Yeah, it's
movie business.
It's movie business, yes, and moving art. And another question here: what drives you to choose a project over another? Is the aesthetics? Is the storytelling? Is the director?
Yeah, people. Yeah.
Generally.
If I'm gonna live with people for months and months, I need to like them very much.
Let's see. Have you ever worked with the ASC color space, or have you ever heard of it?
Yeah. You know, for me, the technology or the color space is less important for film because it's only going to look one way. In the digital space, for sure, you've got to find a system that you can live and work with.
Perfect. And there are lots of Star Wars fans here on our chat. People would like to know if you appreciated the original films. I think it's pretty obvious.
Oh yeah,
the answer.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm pretty sure you remember the first time you watched the episode 4.
Yeah, I know where I was. Yeah. No, those movies, specifically for my generation, were really, really important because they, like Kubrick's movie, Lucas changed the look and feel of science fiction. And who doesn't love a space opera?
Who doesn't?
No, I don't know.
And the wonderful thing about these classics, I think you said this in an interview before, and the classics are being remastered and shows the powerful of the 35 mm in the film, because you can see something like Vertigo, or I don't know, Casablanca, or all those films being restored.
Did you see the restored Apollo 13?
I saw it.
Yeah,
looks amazing.
Incredible. Yeah,
it's incredible. It looks like it was shot like yesterday. It's
absolutely,
It was like, my God.
My case rests.
Your case rests. Yeah. And have you been into the HDR technology?
Yeah.
You did a remaster for HDR for Pacific Rim, right?
Oh no, we've been using HDR for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Dolby is what we've been working with Dolby for many years, and the digital versions of Skywalker are all separately mastered in the different processes for the maximum rendition, which is fantastic. I'm a huge fan of HDR. Because we can bring so much information back, right? Sometimes it's like... Yeah, I just love the high contrast.
Yeah. Somebody asked here, if you've been working in the film industry for such a long time, are you interested in taking the role as director on a project?
I love my job, and I think that directing is another whole skill that requires a different head. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not finished learning.
So we are completing the second hour. I have like 1.5 minutes. My final question is your final thoughts and your advice for young filmmakers. What is the biggest advice that you could do?
Well, I think one of the most important things is, as a filmmaker, learn how to write a good essay, because this is very important in storytelling. Learn how to write a good essay. And the second thing is, just shoot anything. It doesn't matter. Get a camera and just shoot, and teach yourself what you like and what you don't like.
Perfect. That was a beautiful final thought, Dan. I couldn't thank you enough, man. It was a pleasure to talk to you during this crisis.
Thanks for having me. And
but it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. And I wish Brazil luck over the next few days.
Thanks.
All right.
It's really hard. I love the hair.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.